They say the void is empty, that beyond the borders of our mapped empire, there is only silence. But silence is never empty. It is waiting, and we are the ones who dare to fill it. The ISS Eclipse drifted through the abyss, a leviathan of steel wrapped in flickering blue lights. The ship was old, a relic from an age before the Empire had perfected its dominion over the stars. Its hull bore the scars of forgotten wars, its crew a patchwork of veterans, conscripts, and the unwilling, all bound by duty to something they no longer understood. I stood at the observation deck, watching the anomaly grow in the distance, a void against the void, a rupture in the fabric of the universe itself. It was called the Veil, a name given by the few scholars who still whispered of it in hushed tones before those same scholars vanished. Admiral Salles, you are to lead the Eclipse and its fleet to investigate the Veil. Analysis, containment, if necessary, neutralization. The Empire's orders were absolute. Failure was not an option. But as I gazed into the abyss, a single thought pressed against the back of my mind, an itch I couldn't scratch. What if it isn't meant to be contained? Status report. Commander Lucien Voss, my second-in-command, straightened. He had the look of a man carved from ice. Sharp, emotionless, a soldier through and through, the kind the Empire bred in vats. Warp transit complete, Admiral. We've arrived at the designated coordinates. I turned my gaze to the massive viewport that framed the front of the bridge. The veil hung in space like an open wound. Not black, not empty, but something else entirely. It looked like torn fabric, an unmade thing, as though the universe had been split open and left to bleed. Something inside it was moving. Readings? I asked. Lieutenant Elias Morrow, the ship's science officer, swallowed hard before answering. No gravitational consistency, no known energy signature, no mess. It's there, but... He hesitated. But it isn't. Voss scowled. That makes no damn sense. Neither did the Veil. Any sign of the missing ships? I asked. 3 Empire vessels had disappeared near this region before us. The last transmission from the ISS Omen had been nothing but static and a single word. Listen. No distress signals, Morrow said. But there's... something. He hesitated. I turned sharply. Explain. He adjusted the holoscreen, enhancing the data stream. There's a pattern. Not a transmission, not quite, but a frequency. It's embedding itself into our systems. Low level at first. It started the moment we arrived. I leaned closer, scanning the waveform. It wasn't just noise. It was a pulse, a rhythm, a heartbeat. The Veil was alive. We deployed the drones first. Standard protocol. Machine eyes before human ones. They plunged into the anomaly, swallowed by its shifting mass. Seconds passed. Minutes. Then static. I clenched my jaw. Did they transmit anything? Morrow shook his head. Only fragments. He hesitated, then patched the feed through the ship's audio systems. A low, droning whisper filled the bridge. Not a message. Not language. Something else. The sound of something thinking. A shiver ran down my spine. Voss exhaled sharply. That's enough. The feed cut. Silence filled the bridge, but I could feel it lingering, like an echo beneath my skin. The hours passed in slow, stifling increments. The crew whispered in the corridors. They spoke of shadows in their periphery, voices in their dreams. The Veil did not move, yet it was moving. The data screens flickered inconsistently, as though space itself was shifting. Morrow was the first to break. It's getting inside. His voice was tight, barely above a whisper. Our instruments, our systems. It's learning. Voss scoffed. You sound like a damned fanatic. I'm not imagining it. Morrow slammed a trembling fist against his console. We need to leave. We shouldn't be here. I didn't blame him for his fear, because I felt it too. Still, the Empire's orders were clear. Analysis, containment, neutralization. I turned to Voss. Prep an away team. He hesitated. Admiral, you can't be serious. I met his gaze. Something took those missing ships. We need to know what. A long pause. Then, reluctantly, he saluted. Understood. As the Eclipse's hangar doors opened, a single shuttle descended into the Veil's endless dark. The moment it crossed the threshold, the whispers returned. Only this time they said a word we could all understand. Welcome. Fear is not the absence of knowledge. It is the realization that knowledge does not matter. The shuttle vanished into the Veil. We watched from the bridge as its engines flickered, swallowed by the shifting mass beyond. On screen, the telemetry feed pulsed erratically. The data was incoherent. Altitude, velocity, and atmospheric pressure fluctuated, as though the shuttle was being pulled between different states of existence. Voss stood rigid beside me, watching the helmet cams of the away team. His unease was palpable. Good. Fear keeps us alive. Inside the shuttle, Major Lorne Reyes led the squad. A hardened veteran, he had survived over a dozen missions that should have killed him. His voice was calm, precise. Crossing the threshold now. No resistance. Atmosphere is breathable. I frowned. That was impossible. The Veil was deep space. There should have been nothing. Proceed with caution, I ordered. The video feed flickered. Glitches, distortions, as if the cameras struggled to perceive what they were seeing. Then the darkness peeled away. Something was inside. The shuttle touched down on solid ground. I leaned closer. That wasn't possible. There was no planet, no celestial body within this region. Yet there it was, a landscape that should not exist. The ground was black stone, smooth as glass but shifting as if alive. Towers stretched across the horizon. Skeletal spires, taller than anything the Empire had ever constructed. Their structures half-formed, as if frozen between dimensions. Voss muttered a curse. This wasn't on any scans. Reyes and his team stepped out, weapons raised. The ground rippled beneath their boots, reacting to their presence. The Veil was not just an anomaly. It was a place, and something had built it. Do you see any wreckage? I asked. Reyes scanned the surroundings. Negative, Admiral. No sign of the missing ships. No debris, as if they had never existed. Then one of the soldiers, Private Dax, spoke, his voice strained. I hear something. I stiffened. The whispers. They had returned. Not through the comms, but inside the team's helmets. They were speaking. Reyes turned his helmet cam toward the horizon. A silhouette stood in the distance, barely visible against the shifting dark. No, not a silhouette. A reflection. It was Reyes, his own form standing perfectly still, facing him. A mirror with no glass. Dax screamed. The feed cut to static. The bridge fell into silence. What happened? Voss barked. Morrow frantically worked the controls. Telemetry is unstable. Their signals. The feed returned. The team was gone. Only Reyes remained, standing alone. His breathing was sharp, erratic. His reflection was still there, standing opposite him. It moved when he moved, matching him perfectly. Then, slowly, it tilted its head, but Reyes had not moved. The whispering grew louder. It was not a reflection. Reyes, I said, return to the shuttle. Now. He did not respond. He stood, frozen. His heartbeat, displayed on the holoscreen, was rising rapidly. Reyes, I repeated. Then the reflection smiled. A slow, impossible movement. It had no face, no mouth, and yet somehow we all knew it was smiling. Reyes screamed. His helmet cam collapsed into distortion. The feed died. A cold weight pressed into my chest. The away team was gone. The Veil had taken them. Voss turned to me, his expression grim. Admiral, what are your orders? I stared at the twisting, impossible landscape, at the wound in the universe. I thought of Reyes' last moments, of the smiling reflection. We should leave. And yet, the whispers had changed. Before, they had been incomprehensible, fragments of sound. Now they were words. One in particular stood out. Stay. I exhaled slowly, closing my eyes. No one else goes in, I said. Not yet. But it was already too late. The Veil was inside us now. The universe is not built for us. We are insects crawling over something vast and incomprehensible. But sometimes the vastness looks back. We had lost contact with Reyes and his team. Their signals were gone. Not even static remained. It was as if they had never existed. On the main screen, the veil loomed before us, an absence given form, stretching beyond reason, beyond understanding. And then it moved. Not the structure itself, but something within it. I gripped the console as the whispers returned. Louder now, no longer distant murmurs, but clear voices, speaking in unison. You see now, a shudder ran through me, because the voices weren't alien. They were familiar, the voices of the missing. Admiral, something's wrong, Morrow whispered. He was staring at the data stream, hands shaking. The screens showed impossible readings, locations shifting, time dilating, the ship itself appearing in multiple coordinates at once. We were splintering, coming apart at the seams. This isn't a place, he murmured. It's an event. It's happening to us. Voss swore under his breath. Admiral, I strongly recommend we cut our losses and get the hell out of here. He was right. I knew he was right. And yet, something clicked deep within the ship. A low, resonating vibration. A heartbeat. No, not ours. The veil was inside the Eclipse now. The lights flickered. The gravity plating groaned. Then the ship spoke. Or rather, something within it used the ship to speak. A voice crawled through the comms, through the walls, through the very air. A perfect distortion of human speech. Open the door. Every muscle in my body tensed. What door? Voss muttered. I knew. I had always known. The Empire had lied. The veil was not a discovery. It was a prison. A seal that should never have been disturbed. And we had unlocked it. The bulkheads groaned. Something moved within the corridors. Security reports flooded in. Crew missing from their posts. Hallucinations spreading. Shadows in places no light should exist. And then, a message appeared on the screen, written in our own language. I am waiting. Screams erupted from Deck 7. I bolted from the bridge, Voss at my heels. The corridors felt wrong. Too long, too wide, like the ship had stretched in ways that defied geometry. When we reached Deck 7, my blood ran cold. The walls were changing. They pulsed, shifting between metal and something organic. Veins of darkness spread like rot. The air hummed, filled with a frequency that burrowed into the skull. And in the center of the corridor they stood, the missing crew, or rather what remained of them. Their forms were fractured, shifting in and out of focus, as though reality itself could not decide if they were real. And then they spoke, not with their mouths, but with their eyes. Voices echoed inside my mind, layered, endless. Let us out. I raised my weapon. My hands shook, because I recognized them. Reyes, Dax, the away team. They were still alive. Or something that remembered being them was. Voss whispered, Admiral, what do we do? For the first time in my life, I didn't know the answer. We should leave. We should warn the Empire. We should never have come. But then Reyes smiled. A slow, patient thing. And I understood. The veil had never been a location. It had been a lure. We were never meant to study it. We were meant to replace the ones inside. Fall back, I ordered. We ran. As we did, the ship screamed. Lights burst. Metal groaned. The corridors warped, twisting into something alive. The veil was consuming us. On the bridge, Morrow was shaking. It won't let us leave, he gasped. The warp engines. Something's inside them. The view outside the viewport had changed. The veil was closer now. Expanding. No, becoming. And we were already part of it. Voss turned to me, voice tight. Admiral, we have one option left. I nodded. I had known from the moment we arrived. A quantum overload. The same technology that allowed us to bend space-time could rip a hole straight through it. If we detonated the core, we could collapse the veil. Or at least collapse ourselves before it could consume us. I moved to the console. As I did, the veil spoke one last time. Do not fear. You will never be forgotten. A chill ran down my spine, because I knew it wasn't a warning, it was a promise. I activated the overload. Power surged through the eclipse. The veil twisted, writhing in protest. The whispers howled, shifting between pleas and laughter. The ship shook apart. The last thing I saw was Reyes standing in the corridor, smiling that impossibly human smile, as if he had known all along that this had been inevitable. The ISS Eclipse never returned. Decades later, the Empire would send probes, fleets. They found nothing. No wreckage, no distress signals. The veil had vanished. But sometimes, in the farthest reaches of space, pilots report hearing strange transmissions. Not messages, not warnings, just a whisper, endless, patient, waiting. Open the door.